Welcome to today's Midnight training session, in which we'll be focusing on our scheduling system and the dynamic job board. In today's session, we'll be focusing on three core areas of our scheduling system: the dynamic job board, or DJB, the shop floor display view, and also the calendar and timeline views within the dynamic job board itself. Before we jump into it, though, let's take a look at our admin menu for some controls within the drop-down menus that we'll be referencing over the course of today's session. Starting within the global settings, we have the DJB tab. In here, you can set a few standards that interact with our shop floor data collection system, as well as some elements that are specific to a collective of areas within the DJB. Starting with the default job in status displayed on the dynamic job board. If you were to create a new service and then have work begin to get logged against it using our shop floor data collection system, you can have that status update any new tasks as being defaulted to, say, in progress or under work. The default on your site, if you haven't already adjusted this, is always going to be in progress, but it can be changed as needed. All of the statuses that you see here can be assigned to any specific task within the DJB, and those statuses are controlled here under the task status list. To modify these, you can click the edit button and adjust the names and colors within each item. You can also click the new button to add a new status, under the assumption that the ones that we have here may work, but not entirely for your workflow. Finally, to deactivate one of your statuses that you no longer have use for when you edit that status, you can uncheck the checkbox under active and click the update to commit that change, hiding it from view from here on out. We also have the urgency settings. These can be assigned not to the services themselves, but to the jobs that contain your services. By default, you'll have 4 of them available on your site: normal, medium, high, and highest. You can also add others. In this case, I've added postponed to one of mine. These color codes interact with our version status view within our DJB, so that way you can have a sort by priority or urgency. And these can be assigned in both the order itself and within the order on the dynamic job board. If we scroll down, we'll see a few command settings for the shop floor view of our dynamic job board. If you're unfamiliar with the shop floor view, it is more like a display view intended for monitor display only and not for interaction. The shop floor display view will rotate by department for a view of all of your outstanding tasks within said department, unless you uncheck this auto rotate department button. It will also scroll vertically to show you the entirety of the services that need to be completed for any respective open jobs. And finally, because the system is connected to our database, an auto refresh time can be established, allowing you to update your tasks as they're completed or adjusted in status, so that way it displays as correctly as possible. Finally, there is a default background image, in which we'll see in a few minutes. A new one, such as an all-black background or a different image of your choice, can be uploaded by using this choose file and adding your own. By default, you'll see a midnight cloudy background. In relation to the color coding, we'll also take a peek at our service type list. Under our services, we can identify our service by name, sort, and also provide a color and icon. The service type name, of course, is what your service type or department may be named as, and the sort indicates where it will appear in relation to the others. This holds true for estimates and orders within the general workflow of data entry, but is also the case within our shop floor, as the departments will be listed in order of workflow based on the sort order provided here. The icon and color correspond to views on the shop floor display view. This allows you to identify, based on color, what work for a particular job has been completed before needing to convey that work for a secondary department can begin. You'll see through the job board that as we complete the services, the shop floor display view will be updated. So that way any job that has services across multiple departments will have its color-coded icon grayed out upon the completion of all services within that department. This allows a method of communication between departments to make sure that without having to actually get your team involved, they can simply look at the board and see that work has been completed and that the next department can begin their work. Next, we'll take a look at the standard services. We can see that we have a type associated with many of our services here. These services are given a type in relation to the service type in which we've defined already. And if we want our services to appear on the dynamic job board, we'll need to make sure that the show on DJB/calendar and also that the show on shop floor/display view are checked accordingly. This is important as you may not necessarily want all of your services to always be displayed on one of your job boards. You may have a service specific to invoicing, such as customer credit memo or discount, that you would like to omit from your production view. By unchecking these, you make it so they don't clutter up any of your other services lists as you have them entered. Additionally, when creating a service for scheduling, the service name and code are what will often be referenced, and the run rate is referenced to determine the estimated time of completion required to update any of your tasks as they're added to the job board. The run rate here is listed at a per hour rate and functions in tandem with the line item's quantity. So that way, by a simple mathematical expression, it can identify how many pieces per hour can be completed, and based on the total number of pieces ordered or required for completion, how long an estimate of the completion will take. This number can be adjusted through the service wizards that can be built within the service wizard list. In this case, if you assign a wizard to one of your services, the factor or multiplier will kick in and multiply the run rate times whatever you have the factor valued at. Do note that this is not a flat time add-in, it's a multiplier. So if you wish to increase the speed and show that you can produce more pieces per hour, that you'll need to be sure that you're setting up the factor correctly, as in having the value be 1.15 for a 15% increase, or as 0.85 or 0.85 for a 15% decrease in run speeds. Next, we'll take a look at our machines and our machine departments. These can also be assigned to services, but are completely optional. Your machines can be created to reference the specific machinery within your production floor. These can be given a start time and stop time, so that way they can operate only within the bounds of the time frame in which they're allowed to work. This is useful for calculating on the calendar how long it will take to complete a task if it's going to be worked on a specific machine. A simple case would be if a job would take 10 hours to complete and were to begin at 8 a.m. If your machine is only available for use of 8 hours during your workday, then it cannot be completed entirely over the course of one day and would require 2 days to complete. The machine timeframes, as well as new machines, can be added or adjusted by modifying them by clicking the Edit button here and changing the times accordingly, or by adding a new one entirely by using the dark gray row here at the bottom, filling your name and description for your machines, as well as providing the time slots that your machine is available to run. The machine departments is an effective way to consolidate your many machines into simple departments for quick selection. You can also assign timeframes to your machines that work in tandem with the machinery within each department. To create a new department, you can add a new instance in the bottom row here. And to modify the machines in which you can assign to a department, such as our folders and cutters, you can click the blue Add Machines button. In this list, you can check the checkbox for any machines that you wish to add to your department and uncheck the ones that we wish to exclude. And then your machines list will be updated for your machine department with the new machines that you assigned. Back in the services list, these can be applied to your service. And if you wish to take advantage of our auto scheduler, then you'll need to make sure that both the machine department and the machine within the machine department are selected. This will work in tandem with the auto schedule checkbox and the schedule days. If the auto schedule checkbox is checked, then your schedule days value will appear. This schedule days value will identify that work needs to be scheduled out at minimum this value's worth of days before the order's due date. Finally, any service that utilizes our print calculator or wide format print calculator will be generally omitted from this method of time calculation, where you can still assign the default machinery or machine department and tell it to appear on the job board as needed. The run rate in this case will be ignored as it's recalculated within the print calculators to more accurately reflect what the type of work that's being done is. So that way it can more properly display in tandem with everything else how long it will take to run your operation. In order to get your jobs to appear on our dynamic job board, we do need to make sure that our orders are set up in order to do so. Fortunately, there's very little necessary for this part. All we need to do is set up our job so that way it has a due date listed in the order header. And also make sure that any services that are tied to the jobs are not yet complete. And finally, that our drops here do not have a complete checkbox assigned to their specific job. In this case, now we have job 1682, and which we'll be referencing on our dynamic job board. To get into our DJB, we can start by clicking the DJB calendar button here. This brings up our standard dynamic job board view under the task view, which by default shows all incomplete tasks by department. The cutting service that we just added for 1682 will appear under its respective department here. Oops. Any other services that we tie in will be marked in here as available, and they'll have several bits of information filled out that we just highlighted. The service description pulls from the service itself and also lists details of the service as pulled from either its comments list or its details pop out. The estimated time is a calculation of the run rate times actual quantity. And we can see that if we click the estimated time by clicking the blue value, pulling up a reference of the service's quantity, seeing the run rate that's applied or auto-calculated out of the system, and the simple math that creates the estimated time here. These can be adjusted so that way your estimated times can be more accurately tracked. And we do have several reports that track the estimated time versus actual time for comparison on variance and productivity. The actual time is a little different. In this case, if you were to actually log time against a job, you could either use the shop floor system to log time in by jobbing into a particular task and then jobbing out at a future point. Alternatively, if you're, say, a data representative and you're simply handling address information or PDF conversion, you can have your team log in and click this value. This pops up a service time entry screen in which your employee can select themselves and plug in how long they worked for a particular task, specify what it is that they did, and then commit it to show that work has actually been done for this particular service. If a service is set to auto-schedule itself, the task start date will be plugged in automatically. This comes from the schedule days that we saw listed within the service menu itself. Additionally, with the calculation of estimated versus actual time and the day that it would start, our system can effectively track the ending time or ending date for a particular task so that you know when something's expected to be completed in reference to the job's actual due date. We also have a view of the status of the particular task. As our shop floor users collect their time using the shop floor data collection app, the new status here will be updated to reflect what it is, either in progress or whatever they have it set to upon completion of their work. And anything set to completed will simply fall off the board entirely. Let's say I have a small red dot here in the upper left of the status box I just updated. This indicates that a change has been made but not yet saved. Upon clicking the Save and Refresh button, you can commit that change. And if your status were to be updated to complete, then once you click Save and Refresh, that service will disappear from view. If you need to adjust something that's been marked as completed or given a completion status, then if we hit the Show Completed Task view, we'll be able to see any completed services. You might have to click and uncheck or give a different status to them as necessary. Finally, here on the right, we'll see the schedule and the task buttons. The schedule can either be listed as a calendar or a green check. The calendar button indicates that it has not yet been pushed onto the calendar entirely. This allows you to assign it to your calendar and timeline views by actually picking the start date and having the end date and end time calculated out based on the expected completion. Once you click Save, you'll be adding this task to your calendar, and it can be referenced in tandem with other services on your activities calendar for the respective machine or machine department that's working under to give you a full timeline structure of your work as it's expected to be completed. A green check means it is on the board, and the calendar simply means it has not yet been placed on the board. And finally, if you need to split your work, for instance, say on a very large, high quantity or high volume task, you can click this Tasks 1 of 1. This brings up a secondary menu in which you can split your tasks among multiple levels. By clicking the green plus check here, you'll add a new instance of your row in which you can fill out the quantities and adjust them to more accurately reflect the work that has been required. In this case, you can also modify your times, knowing that they turn red if they fall outside of the boundary of when one of your machines is available to operate. You'll see instead now that our task has been given a naming structure of 1 of 2 and 2 of 2. Let us know that even though this is the same single task, it's been split out among 2 different time frames and has 2 different completion rates assigned. The view here can be customized. You can either click the columns to assign a sort in ascending or descending order based on the column you click. Alternatively, you can change the columns in which you see by clicking the arrow on the right of any column, selecting the available columns list here, and picking and choosing which columns you want to see and which you don't by making sure they're checked or unchecked accordingly. Do know that we have quite a few available. As you scroll down, you'll see some that are UDFs. These are customizable within the order or order version UDFs list under the admin menu. Others such as sales rep initials or task quantity, order date, these are all stock values. They can also be resized by clicking and dragging a small line between them and adjusting as needed for width. They cannot be relocated, meaning if you try to adjust the placement or location of one of your particular columns, say by moving your order number column to a different location, that cannot be done. And one final way to adjust the view of your DJB here is to click the print icon. This printer pops up a stacked version of what it is that you're looking at as you fill in your search criteria. By making sure the null boxes are checked, it makes it so that way the view in which you see right behind you is carried into the report as almost exactly as it can. The columns in the report will not necessarily dynamically adjust to reflect what it is that you have set up within the DJB. A little customization may need to happen here to make sure that your 2 views, your DJB and your report, come in looking identical. Now, one other way to adjust the view of what it is that you're looking at here is to either click within the order number and see a list of details, including some basic information about the job itself and the full list of services for the job. or by clicking the order view, in which case you'll see a view of your jobs listed by version as they're completed or left as incomplete. This view shows order level information and also version level information, some of which can be edited from here and some of which cannot be. In addition, as you change some of the information within this view, other pieces of info back within the order itself will be updated. For instance, on this order 1692, you can see that I do not yet have a material in date assigned. I can assign from in here a material in date of the 26th of this month. And as I refresh my DJB, you can see that there's no update in the material in checkbox. As we complete and confirm that it's been identified as fully entered in, entering a save and refresh updates our values for the order itself. The reason you see this one listed twice is because of its two versions identified within the versions tab of the job. This implies that there is a due date for each version, otherwise it wouldn't have a date to associate itself with on the board. Finally, if we make another change within the DJB, the change also goes backwards. For instance, if we mark the artwork in as complete, save and refresh to commit the change, and then re-enter our job, we'll see that the checkbox for artwork in here has been updated. From this view, there are a few other things we can adjust, such as clicking the complete checkbox to automatically complete all of the services associated with that particular version, and have the entirety of its version and its services under the task view fall off the board. Or we can do these one at a time by version level by clicking the order number here on the left, making sure that we're within the correct version if we are running a multi-version job, and updating the statuses of our work en masse as they're brought closer to completion. Do note that our services will list here in paginated view, meaning if you simply have too many to appear under this list, of which the number is 20, you can click the forward arrow or next page arrow to see the next group of services. And whether you need to or not, you can access your reports to some degree within the DJB itself. Under the reports dropdown, you can pick and choose within your admin menu a handful of reports to be placed under there. So that way, if your team, say, needs to reprint the document, inventory packing slip, or the job ticket itself, they can access it through the reports dropdown as needed. Back in the status view, if we want to prepare to schedule our work, we can update the employee and the equipment dropdowns with the appropriate information. The employee is simply listed as any employee that's able to work on a particular task. And the equipment is the machine that's pulled from the machine department assigned to that particular task. As you update these, they'll carry through back into the order view. And also, if you prepare to schedule it on the calendar, you'll see it's going to be given the information as needed. Additionally, if you pay attention to the schedule checkbox, if your service has the auto schedule functionality set, then as you fill out some of this information, it will schedule itself onto the calendar as you've now given it details for the completion time. In this case, I've assigned myself to this iGen, and now my time start and finish have been added. Now, if we take a look at the version status view, we'll see the urgency information that we were able to define back within the admin menu. This is similar to the order view in which you see the versions, but they're simply in a draggable view in which you can move them from status to status as needed. And if you double click them, you can be brought up to a menu to again make your changes as necessary. In this case, if you were to say apply an urgency, click save, the color code for that urgency status will be assigned to the order version on the left, allowing your team as a whole to view at a glance where in relation to each other the version status of any version should apply. The calendar view and the timeline view function much like your Microsoft Outlook calendar may, in which you can see in tandem with other instances of information, in this case machine departments and machines, where work exists in relationship to each other. Under your default view, you may not necessarily see anything. By this, you'll probably need to change your machine departments to make sure that you're looking at a department in which work has actually been assigned to the calendar for. As your services are plugged onto the system, you can click into them under the various views, either day, week, or month. You can see details on the work itself and when it's expected to be completed. You can also double-click into these and change some aspects of them. And as you make changes, they'll be adjusted immediately. Additionally, you can click and drag to move them to different time slots as necessary, or even different dates as necessary, allowing you to schedule work around each other and shuffle things up accordingly. Finally, if you want to put a new one in here yourself, you can click the Add Task button. This allows you to fill one out that isn't tied to the dynamic job board, such as routine maintenance or floor cleanup, and simply fill out your time frames and the status if necessary to actually get it listed onto the calendar itself. The timeline view, again, is pretty similar to this. In this case, where you would see only 1 day's worth of time in comparison to the calendar's day, week, or month long of time. You can still see a breakout of work that needs to be completed, depending on the department you select, with a simple breakout of the work that you assign in an adjustable by click and drag format to make sure everything's updated in relation to each other as needed. Just like under the calendar view, if you click Add Task, you'll be able to add a new one as you go. And finally, the Unscheduled Tasks button allows you to see a list of all of your services that have not been scheduled yet. These are services that have a little bit of information filled out, such as an expected time, an assigned date, and simply request that you pick some additional info by hitting the Schedule button and filling out details for when you officially want to start and end, and if necessary, what machine it gets assigned to. As you fill these out, be able to plug themselves onto the job board's calendar or timeline view as necessary. Set a time. In this case, the work that we just assigned for our OSAE has been plugged on, and our IGEN can be adjusted as well. Finally, we have our shop floor display view. This view, as described earlier, allows us to view our services in a department level view, much like the task view under our standard DJB. This, with auto scroll enabled, will allow the system to shuffle through from department to department. And when you're within a department, auto scroll vertically based on whatever work needs to be completed within that department. You'll see some general information in here, such as the service name, the job name, and associated other departments. These other departments are identified under the progress column, and between the two different views that we have here, you can see that grayed out instances of progress indicate that all the work under a said department has been completed, versus another department's color, which has color within it and is thus not yet complete. There is limited interaction that you as a user can perform while within here. By clicking the order number, you can see the task list of the particular job, just as you would have within the order view. Because this view isn't as detailed entirely compared to the primary DJB's view, we simply suggest using this for general purposes only, and usually assigned to viewing on an overhead monitor. The controls for this DJB can be assigned by clicking the Settings button, in which what we had assigned within the admin menu can be reselected or adjusted as needed to make sure that your DJB view on the respective machine in which it's set to is acting as necessary. And finally, we'll take a look at a few reports that interact with the DJB or show data as interacted with the DJB. Under the Reports menu, you'll see under the Production Reports, our Production Schedule report. This report shows all orders and their subsequent versions and services or tasks that have not yet been complete. As your work is completed, either through the DJB or the shop floor, the services themselves will be removed from the list of outstanding services within a particular orders version. Additionally, under the job costing reports, we can see details such as the Dynamic Job Board's task notes report or the Dynamic Job Report itself, allowing us to run searches and sorts for information as a whole to get our data out of the system as we need. Typically, these views wouldn't be used for these reports, as they can be loaded much more quickly through the DJB interface itself, having a ton of information preloaded, but you can access them through here, allowing you to change up their formatting as necessary to make sure that they match your workflow. Additionally, we'll see the job detail analysis and time variance reports. As estimated time is calculated and actual time is logged, the time variance report will show a comparison between the estimated and actual time to let you track and monitor your productivity. The summary profitability and job detail analysis reports will show the DLC or direct labor costs associated with work that's been logged in, either through the DJB or the shop floor. The service detailed time clock report will show work that has been completed by a particular user, either through the DJB or the shop floor. And finally, the active job detail report will show employees that are currently jobbed in through the shop floor, which may provide the reason for a status for a particular service on the DJB as being updated from new to in progress or whatever your default is. If needed, these reports can be accessed without coming into the reports module itself. The production report can be assigned within the employee profile of each particular user to be quickly accessed by clicking the production report button under the home page's quick links. Alternatively, you can change up which reports you see under what quick links on any page by adjusting them within your global settings. Under the Custom Links tab here, by picking your particular report of choice and filling out the command to load it. This way your documentation can be accessed quickly and reliably, regardless of where the user is in the system. That just about covers everything for today's scheduling reports training session. We'll go ahead and take everyone off mute, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.